All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on this week's video. Last week, we finally got to put the old cherry on top of the John boat build. We got to put this boat on the water finally to test out the stability of it. It did great. If you missed that video, definitely go check it out. We also got to test out the NT300 electric outboard motor from Newport Vessels on this thing. It did fantastic. This boat got up to 6.5 miles an hour. It turned great, it maneuvered great through the water. This is an awesome electric motor. Be sure to check out that video if you're looking at getting you an electric motor. This one's really cool. I've got links and discount codes for these motors too. So if you watched last week's video and you're curious about looking into this, be sure to check the description of that video and this video, I have it there. But since the last week when I got to test out this motor, it got me to thinking, if this 3 horsepower electric outboard motor got us to 6 miles an hour, 6.5 miles an hour, how fast could I actually get this little John boat to go? This is a 15-foot by 34-ish bottom John boat, old 1974 Fischer marine boat, and it did really well in the water. It handled the water really well, and I'm just curious on how fast we can get it. I'm sure you guys have noticed that I've had this outboard in the background of the videos for the past probably few months. I picked this motor up from my cousin last year and haven't really been sure what I was gonna do with it. It's not gonna go on this boat, but I'm curious. This motor is a 1980-ish, I think maybe an 80 or an 81 Evinrude 25 horsepower outboard 2-stroke motor. And it ran when I got this from my cousin Dylan, like I mentioned. And when he bought a boat a few years ago, this motor came with it. He said it ran when he got it, but he didn't need the motor for the boat that he bought. So he just took it off, threw it in the shed, and it sat there for a couple of years. And I picked it off of him last year, and it's just been hanging here in the garage. You guys have seen it in the background probably for the past 6 months in these videos. And I bought a rebuild kit for the carburetor. I bought a bunch of new parts for it. And I figured, let's overhaul this motor, get it running right, stick it on this John boat and go put it on the water and see how fast this John boat will actually go. Because if that little electric motor got us up to 6+ miles an hour, I mean, if you do the math, we should be able to go over 40 miles an hour with this 25 horse on the back. But first we gotta crack into this thing. It's been sitting for a long time. Like I mentioned, I did order a bunch of rebuild kit parts. I bought a new impeller, carburetor rebuild kit. My cousin actually bought, there's a few broken pieces on it, but whenever I bought the motor from him last year, he ordered and had all the new parts for the motor. He didn't put them on. I told him just wait, I'd do it whenever I overhauled it. So we should have everything we need to get this old motor back to running, and we'll get it on this old Fischer boat and see what it'll do. But first, let's crack into this thing and see what all it's gonna need to get running again. I haven't worked on one of these old motors in a long time, so I'm not sure exactly what all we're gonna have to take off, but I do wanna check compression, and it's a pull start. I wish it was a push button start, but it's just a pull start. But you can tell, hopefully you guys can tell, how when you crack open one of these old 2-strokes, if there's a lot of sticky junk all around the carburetor and in the bottom, that it's probably hadn't had a carburetor rebuild in a long time. My nitro, I've been putting it off for a while, but my big motor, my 150 Merc on the nitro, I've got to do the carburetors on it this year too, because it's starting to do like this and it don't want to idle right. So the carburetor definitely needs to be rebuilt. We're going to check compression on it, check spark, and pull the foot off, do some new foot oil and the impeller. And rebuilding these things is super cheap. So if you find a good deal on an old boat motor that you're wanting to put on your John boat, check the compression. If the compression's good, you can rebuild these motors for almost nothing compared to what, you know, the motors are worth. I think the impeller was like less than 20 bucks. The carb kit was less than 20 bucks. I probably only have like 40, 50 bucks max in overhaul stuff, and we should be able to get, as long as the compression's good, we should be able to get this thing going pretty well. So right here, I've got the impeller kit. It's got a little bitty baby impeller on this thing. It comes with the new bolts. It comes with the new top and everything we need with the new gaskets. In this box, oh, I've got the fuel pump. So this thing also has a fuel pump. Is it on your side or my side? There it is right there. So it's got a fuel pump on it. Hopefully I got the right one. It looks like I did. I ordered all this stuff like 6 months ago, y'all. So it's just been sitting in a box in the cabinet over there. The lever this broke, this guy right here, you can see Dylan's got like $40 worth of JB Weld on it. He went ahead and ordered me a new handle because the handle snapped when they were actually loading it to bring it to me when I bought it. And he tried to kind of quick fix it so that I could use it, but he went ahead and ordered me one of those. And there's a few other little broken pieces down below that you can just get really cheap, like these little fins that go on the foot down here. You'll see those when we get to it. I got to go through all this stuff. I don't even remember what all I ordered. So first, let's start off with, I guess we could check compression. Let's check compression first, and then we'll go from there. I hadn't had to use my compression tester in a long time. Hopefully it's the right threads for this boat motor. I'm gonna pull the plugs out. They look like they haven't been changed in a long time. That's one thing I didn't buy. I don't think I've got plugs for it, so I may end up having to run to town and get some plugs for it. You also always wanna look for cross threading. If you go to pull a plug out and it's been cross threaded in there, just walk away. I mean, unless you're getting the motor for less than 20 bucks, I wouldn't even mess with it. Yeah, these things are super dirty. Got the old Champion plugs in them. And I haven't looked it up yet to see what the numbers are supposed to be. But usually you're just looking for a good consistent, like if you've got a good high pressure in one cylinder, you want the next cylinder, like if it's a 2-cylinder, you want them both to be really close to each other. You don't want one to be 35 and then the other one be 5 or, you know, or 70 or something like that. You want them to be pretty close to each other. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do them both 4 pulls. All right, yeah, so we're right at 100. So as long as this next cylinder's right around the same number, there's a certain percentage, I don't really know the math on or how you're supposed to figure it out, but there's a certain percentage that the cylinders should be between each other. There we go, 105. I'm happy with that. I ain't even gonna pull it again. Probably just gonna lightly screw these plugs in for now, and we're gonna hop over to the carburetor, take it apart, get it cleaned up and put back together. I just don't want nothing to get into the cylinders while we're doing this. And I'm probably gonna make a run and get the plugs, the correct plugs. All right, carburetor time. I need to go grab my phone because when I do stuff like this, I try to take as many pictures as possible. That way, when I'm putting it back together, I can't remember anything. So if I start putting something back together and I notice something that I don't remember where it goes, I'll be just lost. So I always try to take as many pictures as I can. That way, I know what it looked like before I got a hold of it. That pops right off. 2 nuts, hopefully I can get behind there. Yeah. I looked online yesterday because I knew I was gonna be filming this video soon to see how much it would cost me to put electric start on this thing, and man, I'm tempted to do it, but it's expensive. It cost me a couple $100, I believe, to get what I needed. But at the end, if this motor runs really well after we overhaul everything and it just fires right up and runs good, I may end up adding an electric start to it. We'll see. And there she is. I am gonna go through and check all these hoses after the carburetor's built, because when you see stuff like that, like pieces of hoses and dry rotted hoses, you may want to, while you're in here, go ahead and get everything changed out, because you want the motor to run right. You don't want to take it apart more than once. You find a random washer, maybe we can figure out where that goes. I'm glad that the cowl on this thing is good. It's a lot of times you find these old motors and they'll run, but the cowl will be all beat up or cracked or something like that. There's no cracks in this one so far, not that I've seen, knock on wood. All right, I ended up changing shirts because I was using the air gun to blow out the carburetor. Carburetor's clean, by the way. And the audio is probably different too because I also switched to my GoPro because I was scared with me spraying a bunch of carb cleaner and using the air gun out here. I was blowing stuff all over the place. And I almost got something on my white shirt, which I shouldn't have had on in the first place, but the carburetor is completely rebuilt. And I'm gonna go ahead and tackle this mess right here. I guess now you finally get to see what I'm talking about. See how nasty that is in there? I'm gonna try to clean it up the best I can. And then I'm just gonna knock out the fuel pump really quick, clean all this up. Got a few other parts, like here's that big old honking JB Weld Dylan did. But I'll swap that out, knock this out really quick, and then I'll pick back up with you guys whenever I pull the foot off, because we are gonna do the impeller. And that's gonna be about it. Just, there's that handle. The impeller's right over here. Gonna knock that out, I'll show you guys that. But this stuff right here is just nasty. Not to mention, I got the AC going because it's hot as crap out here again today, and I don't want to have to yell over the AC the whole time. So let me knock this out, and I'll catch back up with you guys when we get to the foot. All right, the carburetor is done and the fuel pump is done. I did a little bit of tidying up in here. Let me show you. So there's how the carburetor looks. I haven't got it completely adjusted. I just did the basic. You tighten the screw all the way in and you go back out about a turn and a quarter or a turn and an eighth, and then you just start from there. After we get it running, it'll have to be dialed in a little bit better. There's the fuel pump. I've got it on and mounted. Got all new zip ties on all the hoses. I pulled these out from the side. That's the throttle linkage. Oh yeah, look, I got the new handle on. No more 4 pounds of JB Weld, I mean. But I had to kind of zip tie them over to the side. See how it wants to touch them? I didn't like that, but it was way worse than that. See, there's neutral, there's reverse, neutral, forward. So it looks like it's all working. I didn't get new plugs yet because I haven't left. I did clean these up, check the gaps on them, and just put them back in. We're gonna try to start it with those. Everything else is pretty good. The coils are fine. I say they're fine. They don't look like blowed up or anything. Sometimes if you get a bad coil, you can tell on a boat because it'll be melted out the side. But these don't look like they've been melted or anything, so everything looks good there. So now I'm gonna see if I can tilt this motor up some, and we're gonna pull this foot off and try to knock this impeller out. And I'm gonna also try to fix this right here. This has been chipped off, and I've had a lot of boats where that happen, and what I usually do is I just draw me a nice circle here, and I'll just trim it smooth with a grinder, clean it up really good, and then when we paint it, it should be fine. That only took forever. All right, y'all. It is the next morning. Last night, this thing kind of kicked my butt. I'm not gonna lie. It didn't want to go back together. Everything was kind of corroded up, and I had to clean every bolt, every little hole, and it kicked my butt for a while. But I got it all back together. I ended up taking the prop off, found a lot of fishing line tangled up from behind the prop, got it cleared out, cleaned up everything. Everything fought me though. Like even the cotter pin through the prop, it broke off inside there, so I had to drill out the hole back through the shaft to get it clear so I could put a new cotter pin in, and it's back together. I just finished changing the foot oil in it. It should be ready to fire up. All right, y'all cross your fingers. I don't rip my ceiling down. All right, I got it to running, and I'm dialing in the carburetor. It's coming along pretty good so far, but I'm having to clamp the earmuffs on the bottom down here where the water intake is to get pressure to come out through the pisser up top. If I don't put a clamp down here, like if I take the clamp off, it's not pulling the water through the motor. I'm literally having to force the water through, and it's got me a little bit concerned that the impeller is not pumping for some reason. I thought maybe the thermostat was stuck until I was able to clamp it shut and then fire it up. And since the water is forcing its way through, I know the thermostat's open. It's just, that's got me a little bit concerned. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want to take this to the river and spend hours out there floating around trying to work on this thing in the water. I've got a barrel. I'm gonna bring it around. Hopefully I can get it deep enough. If I can get it, you know, this deep of water on the motor, and we can run it in water to see if it's actually gonna pick up, then I'll know for sure. But right now I'm a little bit concerned that impeller that we just put in last night isn't pumping the water like it should. Which I also think it is, because if you notice when I just revved it up, the pressure got harder. So it is turning. I don't know, it's got me concerned that I'm having to clamp this water. So let me go dig out my old barrel and see if I can get it to work. Back when I was building that Skeeter a few years ago, and I overhauled that Black Max Mercury on the back, that 175, I had the same issue with the thermostats. So I cut this trash can in half, and it looks like it's gonna work for this too. I even drilled a hole in the bottom, and I use a boat plug so that when I'm done, I can just pull the plug and empty it. I'm gonna rinse this out and get it under here really quick. That should be enough. Now we just fill it up. And it looks like I got into the front of it with my Mercury prop on that Skeeter, because it's got a big old gouge. But it shouldn't leak too fast, and I can always keep the hose just flowing in here. It looks like we are almost there. We just need the water to get up to these fins right here. It's touching them now. Once we get it right in here, I'm gonna try to crank it up. And y'all just pray that it starts peeing. We get a good pee stream and a good idle, we'll be ready to take this bad boy for a water test, a real water test. I like doing this way too, because I'll be able to put it in and out of gear and check the gear. I couldn't really do that with the muffs on because that clamp was right in front of the prop. All right, we're about there. Let's give her a go. Let's hope she pees. Pumping on its own now. Surely that thermostat is not that hot. It shouldn't run that long without peeing, especially when it's 100 degrees outside. Oh man, looks like the water pump's okay. Maybe think I need to just work that thermostat in and out a good bit. All right, y'all, we are on the water, finally. It's been about 2 days since you've seen that last clip of me getting this motor. Where is it? Right there behind me. I got it running in the driveway, and I've been contemplating even taking it out here and getting it on the water because of two things that I've kind of found out since we started overhauling this thing. One is the impeller. You've seen that it did go pretty decent in the barrel once I got it started. I had to put the muffs on it and clamp it while it was in the barrel to get the impeller to start pumping water. And I wasn't really sure if it's, once we get it out here on the water, if it's gonna pump water. But we're out here, we're gonna give it a shot. And the other thing that I noticed when I was rebuilding the carburetor on this motor is I don't think I've got the correct carburetor for this motor. Even though the rebuild kit that I installed worked, I think it was for I ordered the correct rebuild kit for the carburetor for this motor, but I had some extra gaskets, and I thought, you know, a lot of times you get a bunch of extra gaskets and stuff because they're multi, you know, carburetor specific, they're not carburetor specific or whatever. Well, then I got to looking online, and everything that I've looked up so far had a different style carburetor where you could adjust the low speed idle, the regular idle, and it had like 2 or 3 different adjustment screws, and this one only has one. And it's been, sorry about this wind, and it's been kind of hard to get this thing to idle, and I couldn't figure out why. But after digging in a little bit, I think somebody at one point in time have swapped the carburetor off of a newer motor and put it on this one. That's why the gaskets still worked for the bottom half, but I had all those extra gaskets for the top half where all the, you know, adjustment screws are supposed to be, and they're not. I've got one adjustment screw. I did bring me some tools. I'm gonna give it a shot today. We're gonna try to run it. Hopefully it pees. If it pees, I'll dial it in out here in the water, and maybe we can finally put this thing to work, see how fast it's gonna get this motor. I am noticing quite a bit of lean on that one side because of the gas tank though. So if I step over here, I mean, it's still stable, but see how far over it goes now because of that heavy gas tank. So I'm gonna have to be careful about that. I don't wanna sink this thing out here trying to run this big motor. I say big motor. It's a 25 horse, but it's definitely big for this boat. I've got that 15 at the house that we'll see how this goes. If this is just too much for it, we might test out that 15 and put it on here and see. But let's try to fire this thing up and see if it's even gonna run for us. All right. Oh, it's peeing right off the bat. Look at that. All right. All right, y'all. Let's see if I can get used to this thing. All right, can y'all see the speed down there? I'm kind of scared to open this thing because I probably need to put my life jacket on. carburetor is quite right yet. Whew. Holy cow, y'all. This is a little sketch. I ain't gonna lie, little sketch. Let me adjust that camera up there. So it definitely runs. I just got to get used to it. Because when I let off, it kind of wants to turn. And I have to be very careful not to let it turn because I don't want to go swimming. I'm so glad the water pump is doing right though. I'm gonna try facing the right way. Woo, no. The throttle's really sticky right now. Man, this boat rips through the water. I thought this would be just too much motor, and at some aspect it is for turning. It is kind of sketchy, but really it runs great. The fastest I was able to get it was 26 miles an hour, but we're in some pretty rough waters right now. I'm actually fixing to pull the boat out and head on to the house because it feels like it's getting a little bit worse out here, and I don't want to risk it too much out here, but it did great. I'm so glad that the impeller worked. It's peeing good. The carburetor I do think is going to end up being just fine. I need to dial in the idle. It does not want to idle, but it fires right up every single time with no issues at all. I throw it in gear and we can just run down the river. I'm gonna dial that in, and I may paint this thing to match the boat just in case we want to swap it back and forth with the NT300 whenever, you know, when we're doing watersheds and we need an electric boat, I can throw that on there. But when I'm running this boat out here on the river, if I want to go up the river a good, you know, ways up the river, I could throw this little 25 on there and get there. This thing runs great. I think I'm gonna end it here, guys. I'm gonna take out before this storm hits. I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for all the support here lately. This boat build has been awesome. Stay tuned because we are gonna finish up the trailer soon. And if I paint this motor, you guys let me know if you guys want to see that. I'll show you guys how to camouflage one of these old school outboard motors for these boats. I think it'd look pretty cool if it matched the boat. But anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next Monday at 6 p.m. Peace.